When my mother clinked her wine glass against Dad's and smiled at the long table of friends and relatives gathered for their 35th wedding anniversary, I expected something corny. A speech about love, endurance, maybe how hard it was to raise 2 kids on one salary in suburban Ontario. But what I got was a public betrayal, sweetly packaged with a bow of gratitude. "To our amazing son Liam," she beamed, her eyes a little too wet, voice just a notch above smug, "who just got into Carleton University. And to our daughter Ellie, who made it possible, giving up her education fund for him. That's true love, isn't it?" The guests clapped, politely, with that mild confusion that floats around polite Canadian parties. I didn't clap. I was frozen. I felt my face flush so hard it blurred my vision. Everyone turned to me. I smiled stiffly. I couldn't speak. Not yet. My brother Liam sat 2 chairs down. He didn't look up. He didn't correct her. That told me everything I needed to know. The fund she was talking about? It was the education trust my grandfather set up for me. Not Liam, not the kids. Me. My name was on the papers. My grandfather, Mom's father, died when I was 14 and told me himself, "You're smart, you're strong. Someday you'll be a surgeon. This is to make sure no one ever stands in your way." Except someone had. My own mother. And apparently, she was grateful I hadn't made a fuss. That night, I stood at the bathroom sink, staring at my own face under too white lighting. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did what I always did. I swallowed it. It had always been like this. Liam, the fragile genius. Ellie, the steady mule. I studied. I worked part-time. I kept the peace. He got caught with weed twice, failed out of one school, and now suddenly he needed my future to build his own. I heard Mom's voice downstairs. "She'll get over it. She always does." Then a clink of dishes, casual laughter, like nothing had happened. That's when the shift happened. Not rage, not tears, just silence. A kind of terrifying clarity. I wasn't going to get over it. I was going to remember. It took 3 days to find the documents. Mom kept them in her office, the one she locked, the one she said was for her bookkeeping job. I waited until she and Dad went to church. Liam was still asleep. The house was quiet, humming with the fridge and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I picked the lock with a thin wire from a spiral notebook, the way Liam once taught me to break into his room when we were 12. The cabinet wasn't even hidden, just a basic metal drawer. The file was marked Education, Ellie. Inside, bank statements, transfer approvals, and then a signature. My signature. On a request to release funds form dated 3 months ago. I never signed it. I stared at the swoop of the E in Ellie, and my stomach clenched. It wasn't even a good forgery. She hadn't tried that hard. She hadn't needed to, because she thought I'd stay quiet. That night I confronted her, not screaming, just flat. I saw the documents. She looked up from her laptop at the dining table, where she was calculating grocery expenses like the queen of household responsibility. "What documents?" "You forged my signature on the fund withdrawal." Her eyes didn't even flicker. "Ellie, don't be dramatic. That's a felony." She sighed, closing the laptop slowly. "Don't talk like that. You're upset. I get it. But look, Liam needed the help. You have a diploma. You're already working." I blinked. "At a walk-in clinic. You told me I could specialize after a year. That was before Liam got accepted." I just stared at her, and she added, like it was a consolation, "You can still do that later, maybe when he graduates." I didn't agree to this. She stood up then, dropping the mask for a second. "You don't get to punish your brother because you're jealous. He's trying to turn his life around, Ellie. You should be proud." Proud. Right. That's when I knew. She didn't feel guilt. She felt entitlement. This wasn't a misstep. This was strategy. Liam didn't say a word to me for the next week. I watched him skate around the truth. He'd whistle while packing his bag, smirk as he drove Dad's old Civic to job interviews. He avoided my eyes but never left the room. Once, I walked in to find him wearing my old university hoodie, the one I wore every exam season like a talisman. He just said, "It's comfy. You don't mind, right?" I said nothing, but I took mental notes. I watched. I waited. Mom had always been the quiet manipulator, the "but I did it for you" kind of woman. The one who'd give you a gift she'd guilt you for later. The kind who'd say, "We're a team," and then sell your piece of the puzzle when you blinked. I knew if I went public, she'd spin it. I'd be the jealous, bitter daughter trying to destroy the family. So I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I went to work. Quietly. First, I contacted the bank that managed the fund. I requested a verification of the signature on file. I gave them my ID. I signed a consent form. The woman at the counter squinted at the documents and frowned. This doesn't match our file. 2 days later, I received an email. Potential fraud alert. Please contact our legal department. That was step 1. Step 2 was contacting the estate attorney who handled my grandfather's trust. He still worked at a small firm in Mississauga. His assistant answered my call and remembered me. He left a secondary instruction, in case anything happened to the fund before you used it. What kind of instruction? It designates a backup guardian for the trust, someone who can act if there's suspected fraud. Who? David Bickham. My jaw dropped. That was my uncle, Mom's older brother, the one she hated, the one she said stole their family's inheritance and ran off to Nova Scotia. I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, so I called. David Bickham answered the phone on the 3rd ring. Ellie. His voice was scratchy, uncertain. Haven't heard that name in a while. I know. I wouldn't be calling unless I had to. Silence ticked between us, then a soft sigh. Is it about your mother? It's about Granddad's fund. She forged my signature and used it for Liam's tuition. A pause. No disbelief, no outrage, just one sharp exhale, and then, of course she did. I swallowed. The trust lawyer said you're the secondary trustee. I am, he said, but no one's ever invoked that clause. Not even when she begged for money after your dad lost his job. You were 16. I told her no. She hasn't spoken to me since. Well, now's the time to break the silence. 3 days later, I was on a train to Halifax. David met me at the station, tall, gray-bearded, still wearing the same battered leather jacket from the one childhood photo I remembered him in. We had coffee in a corner cafe that smelled like wet earth and burnt cinnamon. He brought the papers, my grandfather's will, the amendment he'd filed after a health scare in 2009. If there's evidence of unauthorized use, he read, tapping the clause with his index finger, the fund can be frozen, audited, and reassigned, under trustee control. And she used it without permission. That's more than enough. What about criminal charges? He looked at me. Do you want justice or leverage? I chose leverage. Back in Ontario, I kept my head down. I went to work at the clinic, smiled at patients, ate dinner at the family table while Mom droned on about Liam's brilliant start at Carleton. They said his essay was raw and full of potential, she cooed, slicing into a roast she'd paid for with my overtime money. Liam sat across from me, scrolling through his phone. I'm thinking poli-sci, he mumbled. You barely passed high school English, I said softly. He glanced up, eyes narrowing. Still bitter, huh? I smiled. Not at all. I was too busy preparing my move. The audit notice came on a Wednesday. Thick envelope. Government header? Mom opened it at the dining table and went pale. What's that? Dad asked. Nothing, she said too quickly, shoving it under a pile of coupons. It's just about Ellie's banking stuff. I didn't react. I watched. She didn't eat dinner that night. The next day, she was on the phone for 3 hours. I could hear fragments through the kitchen door. She went behind my back. Yes, but I'm her mother. Of course it was necessary. He was floundering. What else was I supposed to do? Later, I found her pacing the hallway, muttering numbers under her breath like they were a protective chant. She still hadn't guessed what was coming. That weekend, David arrived unannounced. Mom answered the door in her bathrobe and went white. You? She spat. You dare come here after... Hello, Rosie. His voice was pleasant, clinical. We have some things to discuss. She tried to slam the door. He blocked it with his boot and handed her a folded letter. This is formal notice. The fund has been frozen. Pending investigation, you and your son are restricted from accessing any residual educational payments. What? She barked. I'm invoking my right as trustee. I'm taking control. You don't have that right. I do. Sam gave it to me. You smug piece of... Be careful, Rosie. There's a bank watching now. She stared at the paper, then at me. You planned this. I tilted my head. Only after you forged my name. The fallout was quiet at first. Liam's tuition payment bounced. He got a warning email from the registrar. Mom called the bank, who redirected her to David. David redirected her to a lawyer. She tried denial, then bargaining, then rage. "You want to ruin your own brother's future?" she shrieked at me over breakfast. "Is this what you think a family does?" I didn't answer. I just kept stirring my coffee. "You know what, Ellie? You've always resented him, ever since he was born." "You mean, ever since I became the backup plan?" That shut her up, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because Mom still had her story. The benevolent martyr who saved one child by gently redirecting another. She played it at every dinner, every phone call, every social media post. So I started unraveling it. I filed a complaint with Carleton University's ethics board. An anonymous tip with attached documentation. Forged signatures, reallocated funds, screenshots of Liam's brags about his family sponsorship. All perfectly traceable. I knew their protocol. I'd studied policy in undergrad. I knew the word fraud in education administration was radioactive. Next came the insurance company. I flagged a health claim my mom had made 2 months ago, a reimbursement for mental health consultation that had never occurred. The therapist listed didn't exist. Small things, little cuts, paper cuts. But soon, she'd be bleeding. 2 weeks later, she cornered me in the hallway. "I don't know what game you're playing," she said through clenched teeth. "It's not a game, it's a mirror." Her jaw twitched. "You have no idea what you're doing to this family." "No, Mom. I know exactly what I'm doing." That night, I moved out. Quietly, while they slept. I left no note. Just a printed photo of the forged form, taped to the fridge with a post-it that read, "Next time, ask." David helped me settle in Halifax. I rented a basement apartment, sparse but warm. I transferred my credentials and applied to Dalhousie Medical School, the very program I'd deferred 2 years ago. The admissions coordinator remembered me. "We'd love to have you reapply," she said. "With your field experience, you're a strong candidate." For the first time in years, I breathed without guilt. But I wasn't finished. The last piece came like a whispered rumor. A mutual friend texted me, "Hey, thought you'd want to know. Liam's been suspended. Investigation pending." Then another, "Your mom's business license, revoked." Something about fraudulent filings. I didn't gloat. I didn't share it online. I just lit a candle on my desk and wrote my scholarship essay. The prompt? Describe a moment of transformation. I started with this. They told me I should be proud of my sacrifice, but I wasn't sacrificing. I was being erased. And when I finally spoke, I didn't scream. I simply told the truth. I didn't expect to hear from Liam again, not directly. But 2 months after I moved, a plain white envelope showed up in my Halifax mailbox. No return address. Inside, 3 things. A photo of us, age 10 and 12, sitting cross-legged on the back porch eating watermelon, faces smeared, eyes laughing. A crumpled acceptance letter from Carleton, dated last fall. A handwritten note. "You won. Hope it was worth it." The words weren't angry. They were hollow, flat, like a balloon that had lost its air but didn't know it yet. I stared at that photo for a long time, because there was a time when he wasn't this version of himself, when he wasn't a smug leech with my hoodie and my money and my future in his teeth. He was my kid brother, scared of thunderstorms, always asking to borrow my markers, the one who cried when I left for college the first time and clung to my hoodie like a lifeline. That version of him, he was gone. And I wasn't grieving, just acknowledging it. I folded the photo carefully, the note and letter I burned. It was around that time my mother called. Blocked number. I let it ring out the first time. Then, curiosity won. I answered on the 3rd try. The silence on the other end was so dense I almost hung up. Then, "Are you happy now?" Her voice was cracked glass, fragile, sharp. I stayed quiet. "I lost everything, Ellie. My license, my clients. Liam's blacklisted. You destroyed us." "No," I said calmly. "You did that when you decided my life was collateral." "I did what I had to. You wouldn't understand." "I understand better than you think." A long pause. "I thought we were family," she finally whispered. "No," I said. "You thought I was insurance." I hung up. And that was the last time we spoke. Dalhousie accepted me, full scholarship. I moved into a small flat with creaky hardwood floors and a window that overlooked the harbor. Every morning I walked past the wharf, smelling salt and diesel, and felt, finally, mine. I started painting again. Nothing grand. Just old mason jars, fruit bowls, rooftops at dusk. I'd post them online. People liked them. A publisher reached out asking if I'd illustrate a children's book. I said yes. It was a quiet season, healing in small ways, until the email arrived. From liam.grayson@studentmail.ca, subject, "I need to talk to you." I almost deleted it, but I didn't. It read, "Ellie, I didn't know the full story. I didn't know Mom forged your name. I thought you gave it up willingly, that you were just being you. She told me you offered, that you said I needed it more. I didn't ask questions. That's on me. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Liam." For a long time, I just stared at it, and I realized he believed her. He really did. She weaponized my loyalty, my silence, my predictable compassion, and Liam, the golden boy, didn't see the strings until they snapped. That wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a crack in the concrete, a beginning. One night, during winter break, I went back. Not to the house. That was sold. To my grandfather's grave. The cemetery was quiet, dusted with snow. I brought a thermos of tea and sat on the bench beside his headstone like I used to when I was 16, failing chemistry and terrified I'd disappoint him. I poured a cup, placed it on the stone, and said, "You were right not to trust her, but you were wrong to think I needed protection. I just needed time." The wind moved through the pines. I stayed until my fingers went numb. Then I went home. A year later, I was published. A medical student, a working artist, whole. Liam sent another email. A photo of him working at a food co-op in Calgary, smiling awkwardly beside shelves of dry goods. "I'm trying something new," he wrote. "From scratch this time." I didn't respond, but I didn't block him either. Mom tried contacting me once more, through my father, who emailed to say she was dealing with depression, that she wasn't herself back then. I ignored it. They had built a family narrative where I was the background character, a steady bridge for someone else's journey. Now, I had burned that bridge and built my own road. At my white coat ceremony, I wore a gold necklace with a tiny charm shaped like a fountain pen, my grandfather's symbol for truth. After the ceremony, my mentor shook my hand. "You've got edge," she said. "Don't lose it." "I won't," I said. "I earned it." That night, I stood on my balcony overlooking the harbor, watching fairy lights flicker on the water. There was no crowd, no applause, no proud parent waiting with flowers. Just me, my quiet, my future. And that was enough.